there is of course a part how we operate as a being, as a personality,
Hmm.
because it gets a little bit complex. So tell me first, how much do you know about human design? When was the
Not
first?
a lot. I had it done. When did I have it done? Probably over 2 years ago.
Mhm. As
Um,
a reading or
no, I got my
chart?
chart done.
Mhm.
And I can't even remember why or how I ended up doing it.
I
I
mean,
think it
it's
might have
probably,
been,
listen, it's probably not surprised because you teach body balance, you're a yoga teacher, so you probably heard about it and you're like, let me just, your curiosity, manifesting
I
generation,
know.
you know, it leads you to places, you're like, oh, let me just see what's this.
I
And
know.
what was the part that sort of like made you feel like there was something valid in that for you? Like, what was the part that made you feel like, oh, I relate to this?
The part that, we've got lots of things like, like you did the other day, like books open all the time. I've
Mhm.
got so
Mhm.
many books all,
Yeah.
and fingers, and my mind's very active. Um, what I did find is, which was a little bit enlightening for me, is how I use social media.
Hmm.
So, I did try to be really organized and pre-schedule stuff, but it doesn't work. It
Hmm.
doesn't work for me.
Very,
Um,
yeah.
so I'm better off nowadays. In my day, I might be scrolling on social media or something, and then something, or my email inbox, and something sparks off a thought, and then that tends to result in a post for
Very,
me.
very good. Oh my God, I just love it because you're already telling me human design, so I don't have to tell you. So this is fantastic. And now also slightly off topic, but not really. What in terms of like your personal, let's say, motivation, what was like, what is there something that you really wanted to find out, or was it just like curiosity?
A little, well, uh, curiosity, but a little bit more than curiosity, because I just felt for most of this year, actually,
Mhm.
that change was happening,
Mhm.
that there was going to be, that I was being pushed into like a new chapter.
Mhm.
And then I took a group to Bali, and I thought, oh, maybe, it felt like the spring would be when things would shift for me.
Mhm.
And then it kind of didn't. I came back and I was just like, okay, I still don't feel ready to move.
Mhm.
And what am I moving into? I don't know either.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I kind of, and I drew a card. I posted it. I've pulled it twice now,
Mhm.
and it's like oracle. It's like I've got a set of oracle cards, and I pulled the void.
Mhm.
And it says you need to be comfortable. Just sit in the void. It will come. It will come. And so I thought, okay, rather than rush into stuff, I decided to pull back. I was going to organize another summit, and I pulled back on that.
Mhm.
And I thought I'll just sit with it. And then stuff started to fill my social media feed with the Aries eclipse. And
Mhm.
and it was just saying, like, for me, it was a time of change. It's because my birthday's in May, so I'm Taurus.
Yeah,
So,
your
it's
solar
the
return is happening. Yes,
I
more. Oh
so
my
there's
God,
all so there's
this is
all of
so
this.
good.
I know, and I was like, but I don't know. I don't really follow astrology. I don't really, do all that stuff. But I kind of just thought, well, okay, I felt since last year, the end of last year, that something was going to shift.
Yeah.
Back in 2020, just before COVID hit,
Mhm.
2019 actually, I kind of decided that I would leave Les Mills in 2020. But then COVID hit,
Mhm.
and everything went online, and I just thought, oh well, I get work every, a handful of jobs a year, and I can do that from home, which is fine. It's not hard work for me. So, and I'd love to see how they shift with the pandemic and lockdown, as a company.
Yeah.
So I kind of kept with it, but I know I need to let go. So I'm kind of like, the messages I'm getting is that something, I need to let go of something.
Mm.
And I deep down I know that it's Lesnals needs to go.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
Well, I love the fact that you brought up a little bit of astrology because, when I do the readings, for a lot of people, for some reason, I just do a chart and give very minimal information because I kind of feel that there's only so much that people can take in. For some people, I have this intuitive thing that I like have to pull out all possible tools that I have. And with you, of course, yesterday I was like, I absolutely have to see your astrological chart, which I have here. And I'm not going to send it to you or anything like this because it becomes overwhelming,
Yeah,
anything like this.
yeah.
But then also the fact that you are Taurus and you're about to have your solar return, which we call birthday. And but also another thing you said that the Aries solar eclipse that we call it lunar nodes, they shift
Mm,
into Aries, but they kind of go backwards, which means the nodes were prior for 2 years, they were in Taurus. So Tauruses, and why I know this and I relate to this because my ascendant is in Taurus. So
mm-hmm,
like my change and like the way that life has been changing for me has been pretty prominent, but rather subtle and rather gradual because I'm ascendant. But for you as a sun natal Taurus, that change will be more prominent. But also,
mm,
why is it important? It's not just because of the natal lunar nodes, but it's also because the planet of change, a true change, Uranus, true electric change that like revolutionary change. It is in Taurus right now, and it is there for about 7 years. Um,
right.
and it is actually sitting right now currently for this 2 years. It started from the beginning of last year and it
Mm,
finished for you exactly a year after our conversation. It will finish April 20th next year. That
right.
Uranus is exactly sitting on your natal sun, meaning this is the time of your change. And where
Mm,
it's actually, I feel that's it's going to be happening when there's another planet that is called Jupiter, is
mm,
entering also Taurus and will be sitting on top of your Uranus. So not only you will be having a lot of change, but it will be change with expansion for you. And,
yeah.
and on top of this, all of this is happening, and you are Taurus. And from what I'm getting to understand a little bit right now, you kind of lived in a few places in the world, or you kind of lived there, or you travel a lot, or
I used to travel a lot, a lot, a
yeah,
lot, a lot. Like I would have maybe, if I'm lucky, one weekend at home, but then obviously COVID changed all of that.
yeah.
In terms of living, I've literally gone from Malaysia to here in the UK. I have moved around the UK a lot,
Mhm.
but where I am now is the longest I've been in one place.
Yeah. So what I'm just kind of from at least astrological point of view, kind of knowing, because for me, astrology tells me a little bit why people come to readings. Because I kind of
Okay.
hear what people say, but then when I see an astrological chart, it gives me like why your psyche brought you to this question. Like, why is this
Yeah.
happening to you right now, right? So
Yeah.
according to this, because Uranus is also planet of future, and it's electrical
Okay.
impulse. So it's very energizing and it's very agitating in a way because you want to know where to go. And I love hearing what you said that you're not jumping at a bit of this impulse because that energy right now in the air is very palpable. It's like you want to do something. Especially
Mm,
it is happening in the plan in the placement of travels, but also in the placement of, we call it a placement of philosophy, placement of teaching, where you are a teacher. And then Jupiter coming
okay.
in also makes that archetype of a teacher very prominent in you. So
Hmm.
just from what I kind of see as you portray yourself, I see that things are very aligning in what you're already doing. It's a very supportive energy, right? And I think
Mm,
you're already using it in a very beneficial way in that way, right? And let's actually go into your chart because what you mentioned in the beginning was really, really great because it's ties in greatly very well with your design and your chart. Were you able to read a little bit the incarnation cross?
I did. Although I kind of got to the networking one and I go, that's not me.
The networking was not you,
I don't know. I asked my other half.
but
I
that
do a
is
lot
really
of
interesting
networking
because that's
though.
how I kind of see you. But let's go through it slowly,
Yeah.
step by step. Are you seeing the chart?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I am, and I've got it printed out. So yeah,
Okay,
as well.
very good. Because
Yeah.
I just want to let me move this bar down. Okay, perfect, perfect, very good here. Let's start from the point of manifesting generators. So what makes us manifesting generator? And also here another more poetic way to call manifesting generator a time bender. Manifesting generator means that we have these two prominent energies that energize, and I call we because I'm also manifesting generator. So what makes us manifesting generators is that this energy have this very strong impulse. We kind of like a battery with a lot of energy.
Mhm.
I think the actual creator and person who channeled the whole system, or who calls the people there like a time bomb. We're kind of like a time bomb because we have this energy. It's building up, and then something happens, and we sort of like boom, our energy goes in a huge explosion, and we take it out to places, and that's how our mind operates. We sort of like
Mhm.
respond to things that make us excited.
Yeah.
A time bender also, I like this definition because we sort of like designed to skip steps and create faster ways to get somewhere. And what
Yes.
happens there that not always works out so great for us. So we have
No.
to, no, yeah, we have to try to go and get something, and then we skip the step, and then we have to actually go back and redo things
Mm.
in order for them to work better. Or we go into something with so much passion and we do it so fast that we get kind of like bored, and then we put it to the side, and then we might go back to it later in our life and be like, oh, okay, maybe now I have
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
time and energy. And here in the original human system, the human design, they call a lot about chemistry. So the whole it's the original human design is very mechanical and based very much on chemistry. So it's not just something that happens God knows where. It's actually chemistry that operates our energy. And
Mhm.
for manifesting generators, that type of energy of very big energy, very strong energy, and very constant
Mm.
physical energy we talk here about, like physical, constant chemistry that is happening in our bodies. Now, what's important to remember about manifesting generators, something that you already said, and I loved hearing it, is that manifesting generators, we are first generators. We are not manifestors, meaning
Okay.
we need to generate the energy first and
Mhm.
then receive an outside sort of not invitation, but outside sign or to something to respond to. So it's not something that we just go and initiate our own thing. We might have an idea, but then we
Mm.
wait and see if that idea actually going to be generated in our environment and asks us to respond. And we go, oh
Mm.
yeah, now I'm going to respond onto this idea.
Mhm.
Manifesting part, which also is important here, makes us very fast. So if generators, just regular generators, they kind of go around and they got information and they might act like manifesting generators, or they want to act like us, they might not be as fast. But we are very
Okay.
fast, and our brain, our mind, let's call it, our mind
Mm.
is very saturated and wants to take in so much.
Mhm.
For you and I, we have a similar design trait. This part is even more amplified because
Okay.
we have the very top right here. Do you see
Yeah.
the cursor? The
Yeah.
very top for you, and for me, it's open. In your case, it is completely undefined, completely uncolored, completely white. What does this mean? This means that you take in inspiration for me, for a while, it was hard to take. For me, it was hard to understand this, but it's kind of like we do not have our own inspiration in a way.
Okay.
What we like to do is that we plug in into other people inspiration, and that why we might be those people that look through tons of books that just receive an email and we like suddenly
Mm,
like, our brain goes on fire because like this is great idea, let me chew on that idea, let me expand
mm,
that idea. So
yeah.
book empty head, we call it an empty, I like the empty head. So it's an empty head, center, energy center. What it
Yeah.
does, not only it takes in other people inspiration, it takes it in and it amplifies it. So for example, let's say somebody has some idea, inspiration, and they sort of like put it out. What you and I do, we take it and we just make it so large that it actually becomes, we think that it becomes like our thought or our inspiration, and we nourish it.
Mm,
So that becomes our gift, and it also can be our curse in some way, right? So the gift there is that we are, that's why we love information. We love to receive new ideas. We love to receive new inspiration. We just flow and flow. For people that have it colored in, from my experience, I know quite a few people with colored in. They are experts in that one field. And trust me, explaining to them something like this, it's like knocking into the wall. Not,
right.
it's like very hard to put in new inspiration into them. It's very hard to introduce new ideas, new concepts, etc., etc. For you
Okay.
and I, what happens there, though, even we're like a sponge for inspiration, what also happens there is that sometimes we are very easy to jump in and answer other people questions, or we try to occupy our mind with things that are not necessarily important for us.
Hmm.
So now how can we use this practically? I think you and I, we kind of figured that out. Unless it is not your job, like profession, unless it's not paid question to you, and you sort of like step away from that question, or know exactly why you want to answer that question. How this kind of maybe can apply in a real life situation, let's say, what happens a lot with me, I'll have a friend or a relative or God knows who, and they have a question about human design or astrology, God knows what, fitness, nutrition.
Yeah.
They want my help. And what happens, they ask me that question. And with all my love and sincerity, I want to help them. But then what happens is that I actually take in so much of that inspiration to want to answer their question that it takes away energy and time from what I should be actually focusing on right now.
Hmm.
And even though that could be like very regular thing, what happens, it happens so often that if we do not catch that, and if we don't condition ourselves from be like, oops, not my question, not something that I should be answering because I
Yeah.
want to please people, or I want to be nice, or I should
Mm,
be looking like a nice person, we should pause there and be like, what, maybe it's a great question for me to answer for you, but it's not my place, not my time to do that. Does it make sense?
mm. Yes, yes. Yeah, definitely. And it is easy also with sometimes with friends for me to kind of jump in partway
Mhm.
through. And
No.
because
Well,
my head's run, especially my partner, like my head's run ahead of the game. And then I just want to like throw stuff in. And yeah, he hasn't finished talking yet.
yes, yeah. Well, and that's also very much manifesting generator situation. We want to jump because we have that manifestor fire. We want that fire to go. And with the generator, what's important is you see this part here, it's called strategy. So it's very important for us to wait to respond, for other people to finish what they want to say, to
Mm,
finish or let's wait for life. What are you doing right now? I think is such a beautiful, wise, very
mm,
wise moment. Not to just jump because you obliged or you feel like it has been something that you have to do this. You're waiting to respond to something to occur in your reality. So you're generating a field. So why we generators? We need to make sure that we generate energy first. We generate emotions. We generate a field that invites events, people, things into our aura, right? Because it would be very easy to try to be like a manifestor and instead of waiting, go and do things. And
Mm,
they're good at that, but we should not be them, because what
mhm,
we would do, we would cause a lot of issues for our life and for other people's life. And then we
mm.
will lose authority, because then we become like this kind of crazy monkey that just have a lot of energy
Yeah.
and a lot of potential to go and do things. All right. So that's their way to respond strategy.
Mhm.
And I think you're already practicing it beautifully. And then also use that for that question. If it's like, is this my inspiration? Or, and if, am I trying so hard to answer other people's questions?
Mhm.
Then we are moving down to this ajna center. And ajna, like in yoga, we refer to it as a third eye. And this is
Yeah.
the center that is responsible for conceptualizations and for holding on to a structured analytical data. So what happens in your case, right, is that you've taken in a lot of inspiration,
Mhm.
and it filters down into ajna. An interesting fact about your ajna, again, all of the centers, it's not good or bad, or it's all just a fact. It's a fact which it's important to know how it operates so that you can use it for your benefit. What
Mhm.
happens here is that you kind of have this capacity to allow so much information, but also that information, according to design, does not say stay super structured. So you again have huge flexibility. I'm just going to your face. You have huge flexibility to allow things to be fluid in your concepts. Your concept could be very mutable, right? You can move them around without sticking to something so rigidly that you're not allowed to shift your concept. Now, the shadow part there could be is that I don't know, and you tell me about this experience, right? Because it's not
Mhm.
my personal experience, but it's my learned experience that I'm hearing
Mhm.
from people with this design, is that sometimes, especially when you were younger, there is a pressure to have the stability of your concepts. Like you want so hard to have a rigid concept because that's how the society operates. They think the more rigid you are in one field, the better specialist or intellectual person you are. So what
Mhm.
you do, you learn something so hard and you think, okay, if I only get to memorize this thing, this concept, I'll be great. And what
Mhm.
happens is that when you are in the field of a teacher, in the field of, I don't know, some expert, you actually do it super well because remember, you amplify empty centers, they amplify that. So you get to grasp that information really well. But then the moment you're on your own, you kind of feel like that field is gone. Like it's not, that concept is not so strict for you. And you like not even sometimes maybe sure if you know this information or not. Well, in fact, you know it very well.
Mm.
It's just like a whole entire open space for you. The walls are never strict and rigid in your conceptualization part.
Yeah, so this is interesting. When I in my 20s, early 30s, I was a lecturer at a university,
Mm,
and I found that the students on in the undergraduate, so they're in their second year, um, I would I was always gray with them, but they really wanted black or white, like, when
yeah,
it came to, because it's science, right?
I
And I
love.
was like, no, but it depends. So my response when they ask me questions like, it depends. And I think I understand concepts very well. And then you know, I'm quite organic. I kind of just, I seem to naturally be able to adapt concepts
Yeah,
to different situations, but also
bored.
across
Yeah,
industries,
yeah,
across the board.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, so it is malleable in that sense, because I can, there'll be an idea and I grasp it. I think that's a great idea. Oh, we could apply it to the studio, but it's come from Disney, or
yeah, yeah.
or something
You
like
know
that.
what? And this is beautifully, you just beautifully um, explain to me what it looks like when you take this expression to a gift reality of this concept, because this what happens, with for the person. And again, what happens a lot of times, people with open head, they a lot of times have an open agina. So they are sponge, and then they're kind of like lost. And then what they do, they try to
Mm,
overdo and overemphasize. And it's actually interesting fact that a lot of those people, they do go into academia. They do become PhDs and doctors, because they were like, I need to grasp onto this something that make me help to identify what my concepts are. In your case, even though you've gone as far as being a lecturer, you still allowed yourself being very malleable. From my
yeah.
experience with people with a similar design like yours, like I have a friend of mine, she's
Mm,
PhD, great, and she's younger, and I will tell you why in a moment why it matters. She's younger, so her entire world is about this type of topic, politics. And it's very hard for me or for anybody else to introduce any other concept about anything else that does not fit that rigid thing that she created. Not because
yeah.
she's defined and colored in center, just because she wants that certainty.
Mm,
But sooner or later, she will understand that that's not her true impression. She will sooner or later will have to develop what you have, that gift of being allowing things to come in and let them flow through.
mm, mm.
All right. So that is absolutely beautiful. Let me go back into the chart. Yeah.
So
Huh.
what's the red bit then? You know where the ajna is, and
Yeah.
the little bit of red on that
So as I
left
mentioned to you before, your head is completely open. An interesting fact about your head is that it has no any circles. You see that we have these different circles. We call them gates.
Yes.
So it's sort of like a concept that we have in human design, or traditionally it says that when you have no channels here defined, or no gates defined here, you have no karmic lessons to learn from your open head. So your open head is open, it is gift, it's just a blessing for you, and you have no karmic attachments to that expression of energy. So you very, and clearly from what I'm hearing, I'm actually learning great bunch from you, because you have this very open expression of how you deal with information and inspiration
Mm,
in your life. And I'm
mm.
like, that's how that's how it looks like. And also, since you mentioned about the channels, so
Yeah.
gates are the numbers and the
Yeah.
lines are the channels. And
Okay.
you sort of see that it's all based on a binary system, sort of like a computer system that is
Yeah.
one and zero. And same thing is here, because it's based on a polarity, plus and minus, magnetic polarity. So we say that, for example, if you have a gate 47 here in your open ajna,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be looking to plug in into the gate 64 in other people. So for example, if I would know, let's say, a chart of your partner, or somebody close in your family, or maybe a friend of yours, somebody that you have a very good intellectual connection, somebody that really inspires you, that person could have a possibility or probability of having this gate 64 in their design. So what happens is that you magnetically connect to them so well that you feel when you are in their space, you have this whole entire center defined.
Mm,
There's beauty about us as energy field and other people as energy field, and as when we come together,
mm-hmm.
we create a third energy field. When, for example, let's say I come in into your space, and what happens here is that because I have this channel gate center defined, I will be coloring for you this center in some way,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So what's important for us to understand from the science is to how we feel and what we are as a being on our own, and what we are as a being when we plug in into others people energies.
Mm-hmm.
The wonderful thing about your design is that you are mainly defined being, so it's not easy for others to color you completely, or
Mm-hmm.
like to influence you too much, because there are some designs usually of other beings like projectors and manifestors. They are more open, they're more
Mm.
uncolored. So then we have like usually a lot of generators would be people that are defining other people, you know. So
Okay.
so this is how the channels basically operate. They plug in a specific theme and a specific topic. For you here, this two channels, this channel is responding for abstract knowledge. So, for example, let's say you already have this abstract knowledge of the past. And then, for example, let's say you might have somebody in your aura, in your environment that helps you to finish up this channel, and then you have a complete understanding of why some abstract um, events or concepts or ideas were happening to you in the past. So they
Mm.
have very specific themes and topics, and they are valuable when we go to like in the very some specific questions if you
Okay.
have a little bit later. Okay, so
Okay.
let's then keep on moving through. Uh, so what is color? What is colored is sort of usually easy to remember and easy to deal with because it's our energy and it's constant. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, this channel for you is colored, and
Yes.
it's a throat channel. It's a throat center, meaning you have a very defined way to express yourself. Now, when you mention something like you would say something even before your partner finishes it, is
Mm-hmm.
the fact what makes you a manifesting generator is that ability to express very, very fast because you have one of the motors. Motors means centers that produce energy, which will be this center here, this center here, emotional center here, the root center, and the will center. So you have the spleen center, very intuitive center, center that is responsible for intuition, is
Mm.
connected to your throat. So what happens is that intuitively you like picking up on people's actual energy, actual physical energy, and you a lot of times probably just go ahead and tell them right away what you're
Mm.
feeling or what they are feeling or
Mm.
who they are or what's happening in their life. It's very natural for you. Plus, because it's actually a dark channel here, it's a conscious channel for you. Usually, it's the ones
Right.
that are red, they are design channels. They are slightly subconscious, unconscious. They're not, we're not so aware of them. But this is a dark one. And so you are very, very prominently going ahead with that channel. And if you see here, we say channels 5720, it's a chain of prediction and a channel of brain wave. So meaning it's a very intuitive channel. It's a channel that sort of like, yeah, writes brain waves, not of other people as well, right? So you sort of
Mm.
like click into their brain waves.
Okay.
Does that somehow make sense?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, oh, yeah, maybe. So that this energy is defined for you. Then we have the, let's go just lower down here to the, it's called G center or center of identity. And it's heart center. And
Mm-hmm.
we have sort of like this two heart centers here. This is true heart center. And then there was a cosmic event that happened, and we sort of had our heart center separating from one into two, and then we have this other center which we call ego center or center for the willpower. Why it's kind of important, because we as a yoga teacher, you know that in a traditional yoga system we have 7 energy centers as
Yeah.
chakras.
Yeah.
So in 1791, if I'm not being mistaken, we had a cosmic event happening. It actually was a discovery of the planet of Uranus, the planet that is bringing change, right? So the planet of Uranus came into our awareness. And so we started to develop more as an energy being, and our energy centers uh, we had added 2 more energy centers from 7. So we moved from a 7 center energy being to 9 center energy being according
Okay.
to the system. So this you have identity center with a constant energy, so it's very easy for you to remember who you are. Let's call this question, right, of question of who you are. In fact, you have a bunch of this channels defined here. And since let's mention, because you also have the notes here, the keynotes here of channel 1.8, it's a channel of self-fulfillment and inspiration, which is actually very, very creative channel. And I want to ask you if you like, what's your, do you have any creative outlets for your energy? Like, what do you do anything creative? Like, I don't know, and anything is can be creative.
Um, I like writing.
Yeah.
And I actually, as much as I know, I can, it's, I know that my time is better spent doing other things. I do enjoy, um, like making, creating posters, and like using Canva for me is heaven. But I know I shouldn't spend too much time on it. Just designing stuff. So yeah, but it's
Designing stuff. So what's important here is that you remembering your self-identity and nourishing your self-identity through this specific channels and gates um, strengthens your energy field. So I know
okay.
our mind, this is what our mind tells us. And trust me,
Mm,
I'm one of those people who's like, I better be doing something else because it's so much more important. For our mind, yes, us being
yeah.
productive is so important, right? Us getting ahead in life is so important. But for our energy field, what is important is that it stays strong. Why? Because it's not just good for us, it's good for others. When others experience your strong identity and your strong aura, they
Mm,
want to know more about themselves. They want to know how you did it and they want to connect to you. It's actually this center also here in human design, a little bit more, um, let's say, depth. We call it magnetic monopole. This is your magnet. This is your field of attraction. So you, through your self-expression, through deep connection to self, you are strengthening that field and pull things in towards you that are good for you. So practicing
mm,
what is good for you, practicing what nourishes you, practicing what actually makes you feel like you don't know why you like doing it, but you like doing it.
mm,
These are the things that we really need to harness and do more of, especially if you have that channel 1.8. It's a very, very creative channel. It's a very, very creative channel. If you kind of see it, it's in the middle of our body,
yeah.
like Sushumna channel
Yes.
in yoga,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
and that channel is very important because it's a channel that centers. It centers and creates a core, energetic core.
Mm, mm,
And then what happens is that through, remember, also what I love about human design is that it's not necessarily all about us. It's actually us within the scheme of evolution. Because us on the small scheme, it's like, okay, you come and go. Your energy is just going to be expressed for a while and then it's gone. But if we really truly know how to express our energy as a true self that we came in, then we create incredible impact on others and evolution. So we're not just working as an agent of individuality, we're actually working as an agent of a whole evolution. So
mm,
us, people with defined centers, really need to nourish that energy because remember there are people that have those centers not defined, so they don't really know who they are and they constantly plug in into others. So I have a
mhm,
friend, for example, with undefined center. He plugs in into me and then suddenly he's healthy, he is a fitness enthusiast, he is into spirituality. Without me, he's doing other things, but
mm,
suddenly in my field that's what he's very, very grateful because he's like, without, like, he doesn't know human design, but that's what I hear. And I know his design, of course. And I'm like, yeah, that what happens when people with undefined egos, undefined G centers coming into our aura. So just remember that. And
mhm,
also because you have bunch of beautiful gifts available there, right? So it's a gift of inspiration, of self-fulfillment. And then 214, it's called progress or the beat. And it's also, so one, it's a creative impulse hexagram, right? Because this whole thing is built up on 64 I Ching hexagram. And hexagram one stands for male component, creative, assertive, and two stands for receptivity, right? So with that, creative impulse, you also have very strong receptive impulse. So it's very easy for you to receive energy around you, to
Mm.
sense that inspiration and then kind of transform it and put it out there. So that's also very and I think that you already kind of do it beautifully. Then you also have, so these are completely defined channels, right? They're
Mm.
completely full connected to your throat. That
Mm.
self-expression there that goes to the throat, that's very also important factor. And
Mhm.
this one that goes to sacral, I'll explain about sacral in a bit. And then this channel 4629 is kind of not surprised that you are physical or doing some kind of physical in the physical industry, is that because channel 46 is actually signifies, or one of the keynotes is love of body, love
Okay.
of self and love of body. So I also have 46, which I'm also proud of. Usually you see that gate and the channel, usually gate, I just have one gate, in people that are working with bodies. They're either healers or the therapist or people that teach movement. It's very physical expression type of channel. So it helps people to express themselves physically and inspire others to
Mhm.
do same. So that's your G center. It's defined. Let's run then through. Okay, so since we are already in the sphere of the heart, so what is this other channel here that is uncolored, which in my case, it's also uncolored. It's ego center. So your and my ego centers, they are not colored. They are undefined. What ego center does, it's responsible for willpower. So you and I, our willpower is inconsistent,
Mhm.
meaning it's very important for us to not overpromise. It will be easy for us to, let's say somebody comes in, somebody, inspired us doing something, and then we jumped in when we promised doing something, and then we might do this for 3 days, and then we don't want to do this anymore. We're like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which is very, very healthy for us. The world out there does not understand it. Well, actually, a lot of people will understand it because as a population, we are 50-50. We are 50% defined people and 50% undefined people. So you can
Mm.
imagine that all this business talk, all this, business masterminding, business building is built for people by probably and with defined will centers. So Define Will Center says, I'm going to do this. And here they go, day after day, hammering it in and out. For us, it's not like that. We might
Mm.
do this and we might feel inspired. And then we're like, oh my God, do I have to do this? Like, it's literally very difficult to put yourself together into doing it. Right.
Mm.
Of course, what we do then, because we are conditioned by the society that is not a correct way to do things, you have to be consistent. Consistency is great, but also knowing, what we respond to is very important in terms of promises as well. So what we do then, we try to sort of rape ourselves or rape that poor center. And when that happens on a constant basis, when we do this over and over again with an empty will center, we actually going to end up with heart issues.
Okay.
Because remember, it's center that is responsible for the heart. So what I heard, I think what you do already beautifully without even knowing whole detail of that, I think you kind of know it beautifully that, you wanted to or you had to do this, or because it was something that was expected by God knows who. And a lot of times it's just usually expected by ourselves because
Mm.
we're our own worst critics. And then it's very important to be like, oh, it just doesn't look like there is energy around this, or there is no response, so there is no need for me to overexert that willpower energy that is empty, and step out and just wait until there is energy there for me to use from other centers of mine rather than will center, right?
Mm.
Another thing to remember is that comes with a, we call it not self question, me trying to prove my worth. So when you sense that you're trying to prove your worth to yourself and to others, that's where you should be like, yep, that's not me. That's not myself. That's not my authentic self. It's me trying to prove out to others something.
Mm. Mm.
And then just like reflect on that and step out and be like, maybe I shouldn't be necessarily doing that. Maybe my heart is not in there.
Mm.
What happens also, why this is, I find this center very important to know a little bit about the center, because when you are in the business partnership with others, um, like I had a business partner with the center defined, and our collaboration was really great because I would amplify her defined center. And I feel like when I'm connecting with her and we're actually working on the project together, I have the drive. I have the drive to do it, like do things. The moment I'm stepping out of her energy, I'm like, well, that's not my,
Mm.
it's like, it's not my project anymore. I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm.
So yeah, very, very good energy. In for you specifically, you see that circle, I think it's 51, isn't it 51 that
Yeah,
you define?
yeah,
So
I
51
think
is
it.
energy of initiations, which is sort of interesting. And I tell you why it is interesting. So you see the 51 here, and
Yes.
for you, that 51 is in your, oh my God. Okay, I didn't know this, but now as I'm looking at this, sorry. So you see this little curvy thingy?
The
Curvy thing
what?
right
Which
here,
bit?
51, 51, number
51. Yeah,
51, yeah,
yeah,
and it is right
yeah.
here. And this curvy thingy means it is in your north node. And since the north nodes has just been passing through Taurus, right? So it actually, this theme of like, self-worth, maybe this type of like how you express yourself around others, or how you express your promise of commitment towards your project, maybe kind of um, surfaced for the past 2 years, I would say, because that's where the North Node was. Well, like, yeah, North Node was in Taurus, so that's where it was surfacing for the past 2 years. But also, what's interesting is you see that it's supposed to be targeting 25 right here, and the
Yeah.
25 is empty on this chart, but it actually should be colored in because this is your natal chart. Okay, this is how you were born. But what happens
Right.
is after 52, we have this symbol right here. Do you see this sign with like case
Yeah. Yeah.
25?
Yeah.
It's called Chiron. So after 52, this for you activated. So now you actually have it colored in completely. So you have 51, 25 activated. And Chiron, have you heard of Chiron?
No.
So Chiron is an archetype or a planet. It's actually asteroid of a wounded healer. So after 52, what happens is that we bloom fully into our self-identity, completely sort of like healing our wounds, and now fully stepping into our power. So I think your Chiron return was in 2018, if I'm not wrong. 52, when were you, are you like, what are you right now?
I'm 55 this year.
You're 55. Okay, so that was 2000,
Three
right?
years ago,
Yeah, 3 years ago in 2000.
2000, 2020.
Yeah. So in 2020, Chiron activated your whole entire chart. So you sort of created this full channel here. And why this channel is important, 2551, of your being of 52 years old, is that at 52 years old, you have a full channel of initiation. Why is that important? Because 25 is the gate of spirit. So I don't know where to take you with this, but gate of spirit is sort of like a gate of um, healer initiation. And again, I don't know if there is anything you want to share with me, if you had any experiences where you kind of felt that you are more connected to the mystical realm, or more connected to greater consciousness than you've been earlier in your life.
I think so. Yes, definitely. More so. Um, I think when I was younger, like my 20s, etc., we doing things like Reiki and stuff, I I didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
as intuitive,
Mm-hmm.
for want of a better word. And my boyfriend at the time was very sensitive to energy and lots of other things. And I'm like, you know, and But I find like now I still don't actually know. I couldn't explain it to people,
Yeah.
but I do sense stuff
Yeah. Do you feel
more so
that?
now than I used to.
Yeah, more so now than you used to. Yeah. And I'll
Mm.
tell you a little bit more about that Chiron return of like that, which usually happens like, okay, we said exact date with like 2000, but it actually happens also like 2 years prior. So it's a process. It's not just an event. It's a process of Chiron returning to its natal point. So what happens is that, let me return to this part here. Um, so so that channel started being defined for you since that time, but also it has something to do with you being profile number 4-6. Because for a profile number 4-6, what happens is that after 50s, you are coming into a stage where you actually have to not only like naturally start embracing your gift, it's actually your genetic imperative to step into it and put yourself out there, not necessarily teaching, also teaching, but also being that sort of like embodiment um, of a higher self, because it's called not just adapt, it's also called a role model. So you are stepping in fully after year 50 into your role model um, expression. So it's very important that you
Mhm.
kind of aware of this, you reflect on this a little bit more. Don't need to necessarily know what it's doing to you or where you're going to be taking this, because it's sort of like it's actually considered to be one of the mystical channels, and you have 1.5 mystical channel in your design, which I want to mention it to you because um, it helps people to have a little bit more understanding of what might be happening in their lives, that there are a lot of things that are sort of like in a mystical realm. All right.
Okay.
So that's your will center. Just remember to work with this a little bit sometimes and not to prove your worth all the time when they're
Mm-hmm.
to do that. And so now let's
Mm-hmm.
run through this other few centers that we have colored in for you. So the energy of the centers is very constant for you. So first of all, let's go into the sacral center right here. What makes you and I generators or manifesting generators is that we have this center right here defined, colored in, meaning our physical expression, our physical and sexual energy is constant. Remember, when we also say
Mm-hmm.
constant, it's pretty much locked in, meaning physically, they very well know how we operate, and we usually very defined. We usually need not so much rest. We rest, let's say, 7 to 8 hours, and we're usually good to go and do our things. We actually need to wear our energy out in order for us to sleep well. So if we have a built-in energy, built up of energy all the time, we actually might feel restless. So we do need a constant way of, you know, cleaning our house, going for a walk, doing
Mm-hmm.
some yoga activities, very important for us, right? Also, that activity needs to be also mentally stimulated, because you and I have this
Mm-hmm.
pressure when we have an open head, like you and I have an open head. We have this pressure of a constant pressure that of inspiration. We want to be inspired. So when we're inspired, we need to use that chemistry to move our body as well.
Mm.
So with
Okay.
this being said, us having that defined energy makes us kind of a little bit locked in into what we like in terms of physicality, in terms of what we like in terms of our workouts, what we like in terms of sexuality. We might have a very rigid way of how we like deal with, things in life. While people that are undefined, they're very open in how they mm, express themselves sexually and physically.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens is that other designs, they sort of thrive on our energy of physical expression on our battery, which is a good thing for them, but also we need to remember that we have a sort of a capacity to burn people out. We have a lot of energy, and in our
Okay.
aura, if we have people that are undefined, for them, our energy, they might thrive for a while from it, but then sooner or later, they will be sort of like burnt out from us. because we have that much energy that is
Mm,
powerful
mm.
and keeps on going. Um, what's there to remember about that? Sacral is as generator. This is where we should be generating our awareness from a lot of times. So not responding necessarily from here, from our mind. We should be responding from our body. So the way that it would look like sometimes, how you can do it is that you, let's say something happened in your awareness, in your reality, and you can ask yourself a question: do I feel like engaging with this event or with this person? And just listen to your event, listen to your body, and it might be something that comes deep from within, feeling like mm-hmm or mm-mm. And this is what you actually do quite a lot on the call. You actually do this a lot. You go mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So this is your sacral response of being completely aligned with energy. And listen to this more in your daily life. And when there is something that's not necessarily have to be like thought through first, it needs to be that instinctive awareness of mm-hmm or mm-mm. And that usually what generators need to practice a lot. Now, in my case, not only we are manifesting generator, what complicates our life a little bit more is that this response for you and I is colored in by this channel. This channel right here called emotional solar plexus. So
Right.
this emotional solar plexus guy right now at the current stage of evolution is the prime attention, because this is currently energy center, but it is becoming awareness center. So our response of colored in by the emotions, because the emotions are stored here. So in the moment, you and I, we might hear something or we might respond to something with mm-hmm. But 3 days later, you and I will hear the same thing and we'll be like, how the hell did I say mm-hmm to this thing? So
Right.
we'll be like, that was definitely not mm-hmm. In the moment, for you and I, as an emotional solar plexus, we are creative, it says inner authority, but we should wait at least 72 hours before we fully commit to something. So remember, because you and I were manifesting generators, so we might have this desire to jump into something right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay to be like, okay, yes, I'm very excited about this, but let me get back to you tomorrow, or better yet, in 3 days. Because for these 3 days, you need to carry this energy and let your emotions process this, not your mind, but your emotions. Meaning you don't even have to even think about it, but you literally have to let the time pass, because you and I, in order for us to operate completely, we need that emotional certainty, which
Mhm.
never, again, paradox of life, which never will be 100%. It will still feel a little bit like, I'm not really sure, but at least 80% you will have certainty if you should be doing something or you should not be doing something, but you need to allow time. A good thing there to remember, if that is not your event, or if that's not your person, it's not going to be in your field. It will either be there and will wait for you to respond, or it will be gone if it's not
Yeah.
yours, right? So huge learning for me for the past 2.5 years, because it's funny because I knew this whole thing for, let's say, 6 years, and I'd be like, never really practice. And like for the past 2 years, I was like, wait to respond. Like, why wouldn't I wait to respond? And sometimes,
Yeah.
even though I wait to respond, and then something happens, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not there anymore. Like that's it. That feeling that I was like on fire is not there anymore.
Mm.
So people might perceive us, especially with open will center and emotional definition, being flaky, especially if you follow your strategy. But you have to just really ride your authentic self and not allow any definitions to try to, straighten you out in a box.
Yeah.
Being,
Yeah. Yeah.
how does that resonate?
Yeah, I've done it. I remember when I got approached even for Les Mills 20 plus years ago.
Mhm.
and they asked me something, and my response, and this was the guy who like runs the agency in the UK, and I went, let me think about it, I'll get back to you.
Very good.
And it was really tough for me to kind of say that, because the fitness industry, people go, well, if you don't want it, someone else will be, someone else will snap it up,
Very good.
right, the offering. But no, I do tend to be okay with sitting with things.
Yeah.
I do get a gut reaction initially that says, right, I want to do this, I want to sign up for this or whatever. But I have learned to sit with it for a few days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Keep practicing that, because I'm learning from you, in fact, because I do not sit with things and I jump into it because I've been promised something, or I just hear it and I'm like, yes. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? That's how my life goes. But you know what? Again, I will explain to you why I work the way that I work. Is the profile thing. We'll chat about our profile in a second, because my
Mm-hmm.
profile is 3 and yours is 4, and 3 profile, it jumps into all wrong things, to learn what is right. But we need to learn mistake. And that's, I'm like, yeah, it's so funny how it just, you can't change things. You know things, but you still would do it wrong in order for you
Yeah,
to
yeah.
learn it. So that's my thing there. So for you, well, interesting thing that here in this channel 59.6, you have both connecting your sacral and your emotional solar plexus.
Yeah.
uh, 50, and you see it says provision or reproduction. So this
Yes.
channel is responsible sort of for an archetype of it's called like cosmic mother sort of archetype, where, if like, I don't know what's your relationship with your students, it's sort of like you try to nourish everybody. Your thing is to provide nourishment for people, which is incredible thing, right? Because people will actually might see you like that as well. They might be very attached to you, but that attachment will also almost feel like, if it's a professional setting, you might actually feel like this sort of closeness, like intimate closeness to people, which is a beautiful thing. You just like remember to that sometimes, even though you might feel this way to other people, is that sometimes people can abuse that. So I don't know how that.
Yeah, I don't feel myself as the motherly kind at all.
Mhm.
But I do feel that I want to provide them with what they need
Yeah,
in
yeah,
order to succeed.
yeah, yeah,
I do get hurt when
yeah,
I kind of see it as
yeah,
loyalty, like if
yeah,
they kind of then just go off and I'm going, oh, you know,
yeah, yeah. Well, it's also
yeah.
like abusing resources. It's not necessarily abusing you, but it's also like abusing resources, because you like, here, I'm gonna give everything to,
Mm,
and then sometimes what happens is that people might abuse it or like overuse it. And so it's just important to remember that you have that gift, and it's your gift, and it's up to you whom and how much to offer it, and that you do not have to be obliged to do this, because there are like some people that have issue with this specific channel, is that in a family setting as well, that they feel if they do something for themselves, or they spend extra time for themselves, they are extra selfish, because for them, their nature, it's a tribal channel, so their nature wants them to give to others more than they give to themselves. So just something to
mm, okay.
be aware of there. And then, as I mentioned to you, the spleen center right here, you have also defined, and it's like a good, strong intuition in terms of what is right, what is correct in terms of physicality and physical space and food for you. You have that very well defined. And then we have this one, the last one here. Again, doesn't matter which color they're colored. Color does not matter. And this red one right here, it's called root. You have a defined root center, means your adrenal system production is very consistent. It has its own flow, and it sort of like produces a constant stress fight or flight response. Not constant, meaning it's a consistent. It doesn't go off when somebody else comes into your system. It's just very constant, stable energy of fight or flight. So when you're in danger to responded to danger correctly, or when you're not in danger, you rest and recover. And so that's a center that does not really produce any turmoil for you or for me in that way. So yeah, so from in terms of energetics, it's just this open centers that, again, where we have a huge potential to learn, a huge potential to amplify and receive information, but also we have a huge danger in some way to be not ourselves, to be to try to plug in into somebody else in order for us to get that energy and to feel that space, to feel that void. Interestingly, we talked about void, right? So now let's move through this profile thing that says 4-6. So let's say if this is your energy and this is how you operate as a being, profile tells us how our life has what type of scenario we move through our life, or like what type of, if this is how we are as a character, this is the scenario that we're playing. So in your scenario is 4-6, which is stabilizer and adept. In a traditional human design, it's called opportunist. 4 and 6-4 is a role model. So interestingly enough, and this is actually how I kind of see you, 4 stands for being incredible connector. It's a personality and a person that brings people together, that also has a knowledge, takes a knowledge from somewhere, pass it to the others. So that's the role of the number 4. Number 4 people, they are great, as you said, networkers. They are people that, I might not know who this person is, but you know this person, so you connect me to that person. You step out of the picture, but now me and that person, we are the best friends.
Yeah.
And you might not even see yourself this way, but that person, I got to know it through them. So this is your natural ability to do things like you are. Now, moving to number 6 is a profile of role model. In your case, it's a profile that is less conscious. 4 is more conscious for you, and 6 is less conscious, yet you probably will be able to relate to it. So 6 is a very special line. It's a last line from all of the 6 lines. And we call it the line that sits on top to some point in their life up until 52, up until their return of Chiron. And then it has to come down and teach others everything that she or he has observed on top of the roof. Again, using symbolical language here. But it also has, the number 6 has a very specific life path. So up until 30, 6 being 3. And 3 goes around and learns a lot of stuff. It's just like very, very hectic type of line. It goes, bumped into things, learns through mistakes, creates a lot of chaos, blah, 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 everything just happening. So much information happening for 3 that after 30, after Saturn return, 30 goes onto roof. So 30 was 3 was here on the ground, got tired of it, needed time to go recover, goes up on the roof. And from 30 or 35 to 52, that is the time when 6s are sitting on the roof and slightly aloof. They kind of step out a bit. They might be still doing things in the society, but they kind of feel not very interesting, because what actually happens, their whole chemistry starts changing. So they becoming almost like a different personality. People might start disappear from their lives. They might start cutting off connections because there is no more connection to that people. They might moving places, things like that. So then they, let's say for 20 years up until 50, they sit on the roof, observe, learn, recover, generate energy, process all the stuff that happened to them within the first 30 years of life. Then after 50, they step out into the world and they are fully now ready to teach. They're fully ready to be role model that needs to be shown. Because if role model continues to be in that comfortable place, being on the roof, there are going to be hard knocks. So do you relate any way in the to the 6 description?
Yeah, I do feel, even though I've been, I guess, teaching ever since my 20s, my mid-20s, I do feel that when I turned 50, I actually feel it more now, actually, this last year,
Yeah,
that and my other half says to me, he says, you like, you need to step into your light, right? And just do it. And that I probably, what you're saying now, I don't think I've held myself back necessarily, but I've probably just been processing
very good,
and figuring out who am I
very good,
and what my message really is.
very good, very
I,
good.
s- I still think I'm figuring it out, but I also feel that everything's coming together as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. No, very good because also it gets very frustrating. No, it gets actually very nice because you're becoming so comfortable with yourself.
Mm,
But then it becomes frustrating because you feel like, oh my gosh, there are all these people doing all these things. And I'm just like living my own life, being so completely immersed, being me. So what happens is that it's, again, it's not event, it's a gradual stepping out. And it's actually interesting because I do see you already being in your life with the work that you're doing, And again, like it's not like you're doing it. I think for you it's gradual, but it like shows that like boom, Ansi showed up and she had
mhm,
an event. It's like when it's coming strong and very evident.
mm,
So very good, very good. And also remember that it was important and imperative for us to take this time because I'm also line six, because we actually need to deposit and generate actual physical energy. We needed that energy to be sort of generated because even though we might have all the inspiration and things to do, what happens after all, there is no energy. We're like, oh, like I want to do those things, or like I think that I want to do those things, but you find yourself being like, I just cannot. So slowly,
yeah,
slowly after 52, usually it's the time when you are stepping into that light. And not only you stepping into that light, but also the world is coming to you and you're responding now. And that will be happening even more right now because like that 20 years, we actually wear sort of like a cape of aloofness. And I'm actually starting to see that more and more. So meaning people look at us and they will have sort of like hard time to connect to us. It's
yeah,
hard for me because mine is actually I'm six line conscious profile. For you, you're still four conscious. So people like want to connect with you because you have that networking sort of like aura. So they want to come into you, but then you're sort of like aloof. So you create a like, you contradiction. So with
yeah,
six being conscious, I'm literally seeing how I'm losing that friendliness that I had before. Like before it was so easy. People would step in and chat with me. And now I'm just like, yeah, it's just not easy to connect with people anymore. And it's not like I want to anymore. But there is some, I think, protective feature there because sort of like life itself wants us to quarantine for 20 years, not just 2 years of pandemic, but like for almost 20 years where we have to like brew in our own, what is it, juice, like digest,
mm.
grow something bigger than us in some way,
It's interesting because I know people in that I know in the business networking world
Mhm.
who describe me as who've known me like for maybe 15 years or whatever it is, who've actually described me as being an enigma because
Mm,
they can't figure me out.
yes.
And this kind of makes sense now, doesn't it? Because there is that they want to connect, like they think I'm a networker, but then I'm like I've got a veil or a barrier or
Yes.
something, so they can't quite figure me out.
Yeah.
Um, but do you know, like what you're saying with number four about bringing people together? I said to my other half, and this is something that I'm sitting with
Mhm.
because I think that this is what I'm meant to do, and
Mhm.
I to do in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
Is I've toyed with the idea of masterminds, but I don't think it's right. But it's something to do with bringing people together
Mhm.
and working together for the common good. And I kind of feel, because I've been doing business networking for a long time, like
Mhm.
that's how I met my partner. through
Mm,
networking.
mm,
I don't, I'm an introvert. I'm quite happy on my own, but
mm.
I do feel that that's, like the retreats, the retreat in Bali. Oh my God, it's like the best retreat I've ever done. And people have connected, and I know some of them are going to be friends for life. And it was because I've pulled the event off.
So just kind of tell you about this whole thing. So part of my learning was through mastermind of doing this and studying human design. And the mastermind main coach teacher, she's 4/6. And what she did, of course, she gave us a lot of material and she taught us some things. But I think the main part of that whole mastermind was she connected us as a group.
Mm,
And a
mm,
lot of learning was not actually happening through her. A lot of
yes,
learning was happening in the group, me connecting with other people with different
yes.
designs, with different profiles, and actually see how they talk, how they teach, how they, how we talk the same thing. And so I realized, you know what? Brilliant. She earned a lot of money, business wise, she earned a lot of money, but really okay, no, she puts a lot of information. She records material, but then you study those materials on your own a lot of times.
Yeah.
She gives you direction. Again, remember, what is your incarnation cross? You
Mm,
give people direction, you bring them together, then your job is done. You
mm,
you accomplish what you've done. So you see, and that's a beauty of hearing somebody that have already intuitively following their strategy and authority the way that you do. By 50, life naturally takes you to the direction where you're supposed to do. So you very, to me, to my mind, to my perception, it feels like you are in the place where you want to be, what you're doing. Maybe like you said, you did some other, what you use, master classes or something, you said you were trying to do or something. You said like you tried to do
yeah, I've toyed with the idea of running masterminds
masterminds, right?
for people, yes. Um, I'm not quite sure if that's the right thing
Hmm.
after coming back from Bali, but I do know that I think what is my gift is actually bringing people together
Together, yeah.
from different walks of life, which is what I did, with the summit. Yeah,
Hmm.
I had people who say to me, I can't believe you've got like these people that are, you know, not just in the Les Mills world, but from, different worlds
Yeah,
together on the one event. And
yeah,
my project that I've just started working on, I've started to reach out to people, is a collaborative book.
yeah. Collaborative book.
Yeah, so I'm looking for 18 authors
Yeah.
to write a love letter to group fitness.
Mm.
And
Oh,
it's for the instructor at ground level will benefit from having all these people, in one book, a
yeah,
chapter each kind of thing. So I kind of feel like that's what I did with the summit, bring people together for the benefit of the industry.
yeah,
And I feel now the book is the thing as well. I've got small coaching groups, but I feel like now, rather than that, I kind of want to do things more in a mastermindy where actually you just bring people. I want to bring people together in like
yeah,
Bali or somewhere,
yeah.
like amazing, and they will have a life experience that they will never forget, and it will change their lives.
Well, also, even though there's something I want to mention about your chart, but why the astrology chart was important to me is that you have a lot going on right now in the place of travel. So for you, definitely implementing those foreign places in some way is a very good idea because you
Mm,
have a chart that sort of shows that a lot of your life will be either spent away from where you're born and also with your work. Actually, it shows that there is going to be a lot of travel implemented in your work, so that is fantastic thing. Like retreats, I think something that is very prominent. I really love the idea that is like, I'm like trying to understand what the collective book is, right? Because I like the fact that you're bringing people together. It's a
mm,
very incredible receptive component in there. Remember I mentioned to you those things to express in terms of receptivity, the progress and the beat, and the self-fulfillment is very interesting part here as well, because you are creatively directing people into
Mm-hmm.
organizing themselves in a specific way.
Mm-hmm.
So that is there, and then implementing your expressive channel of brainwave, I think is also very interesting, because you are in some way um heading ahead of time in
Yes.
in putting out a concept or idea that even for me I was like, hold on, what is that, like collective brain? Wow.
I had I messaged I think it's Stacey Lee Krause, right? And
Yes.
she goes, I can't believe no one's thought of this before.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, count me in, it's like so yeah, so I get like the whole thing you said about having an open head and processing, because it's a concept that has been done in other industries and other fields before, and but not in necessarily in fitness.
Yeah.
So,
And
and
it
not
took
in group
somebody like
fitness
you
anyway.
to bring this concept into fitness. So we're like, what is that, what's that about? And then something you also mentioned about you not needing other people is actually very true, because you see this definition part that I did mention to you. You have a
Yeah.
single definition, meaning your connection of all of these channels and gates in your structure is such way that it makes you a singular energy, meaning that you don't need any other energy to completely connect your channels. Like in my case, I need another energy in order for me to connect some other chart, some other parts, some other centers to other centers. In your way, you are completely self-sufficient energy. And that's a beautiful gift that you already understand this, and sort of continue thriving on that. And just a few things to kind of remember, emotional theme here is that when you are truly, living out your life authentically from the highest potential, you will feel this theme or signature
Mm,
of satisfaction. You kind of have this general sense of that you are satisfied with yourself, with your environment. When you are not really following your strategy, or you're, trying to prove somebody worth, or you are trying to answer other people questions, you start feeling frustration and also
mm,
anger, because a manifester, what we also do, we get angry. We might not be
mm,
angry people, but when somebody steps into our aura or takes up our time or energy, annoying kind of us, we get like very angry. We're like, get out of my space, kind of thing. So that is your indicators of when you're doing something correctly and when you're not necessarily following that.
oh.
All right, and see, give me some questions.
My head is open.
Yeah, your head is open. I know. You're like, I poured. So what I'm gonna do, I will save this, and I will also upload this on YouTube, but for a private link, only for you and I.
Sure.
And I'll send this link to you, so then whenever you have time and you feel like you want to process some specific parts, do reach out. Um, and yeah, work with, just, I mean, you already, like, what I heard is that you intuitively knew so much of what you're doing, and I think most of it was just mainly a confirmation of who you are already.
Mm, mm. It's interesting.
Do you have, so like what we just kind of mentioned, you kind of like redefined, or were like redefining your work, or like trying to sort of like pinpoint areas where you trying to focus on? Is that what your question kind of could be?
Yeah, I think it's very much as I said to you, I feel like, there's a big shift, happening. It's almost like closing off one chapter and moving into the next chapter of my life.
Chapter, yeah.
And what does that look like and feel like? I know that I'm quite fluid and malleable. So when I do, and people in my world that get me are fine as I shift along the way.
Mhm.
But for others who like to know, okay, lunch is at 12, and very defined outcome. If I run a course or anything like that, they do find it much more challenging to work with me.
Yeah.
And so like the yoga teacher training now, I've decided that the way I'm going to do it is that you want to do that, you work with me and we work one-to-one. And we have the structure of the content, but actually the beauty and the power of it comes in our one-to-one sessions, because then we can go anywhere.
Yeah.
Wherever the conversation takes us, and wherever inspiration takes us. Whereas if I run a group training course, it's very much like, this is the content and that kind of thing, which I can do also. But I love it when there are almost like no boundaries, and things just, people ask me questions, and I tap into inspiration kind of stuff. So yeah.
And it's just in case it cuts us off, because
Yeah.
it's going to be one thing. Just a few words I want to mention too. I do understand what you're saying there, but also just remember that you bringing your energy, and there, when you bring energy to your clients or to your groups, right, your group or your client might have that very, very well structured rigid energy, let's call it this way, right? So where the beauty happens is that you guys create this beautiful fulfilling union, where you adding your energy of like creative flow energy and that energy of, let's say, structure, right? So what happens is good to kind of be that receptive for you to be like, oh, let me actually add in my creative approach to their rigid approach, and have that sort of like scheduled structure way of doing things. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I mean, like the example is, like Les Mills is a structure, right? It's set because they deliver their trainers all over the world. But I tend to work within that structure. And what I've learned to do very early on is, if I have to work within a structure, I do say to them that I am very organic.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the way my brain works.
Yeah.
That's how I work, so they kind of know it up front, so that I'm not going to be very like, oh, this is it and that's it. I'm open to them asking questions, and I'm open to whatever.
And you know what, like, interestingly, for me at least, to know that, like, working with you in like a brief way that we did, I kind of perceived that you're very well structured. Like the way that you organized the events was like very structured, like impressively structured. And so what it almost feels like to me, and also like a huge example, what I try doing right now, right, as I'm going through my own process of like being on the roof, but still working for myself, with myself, because I stopped working with anybody else, knowing that I'm very much also like you in terms of like needing to follow my own calling. And then not having that structure was very weird for me. It still is weird for me, where I'm trying to step in and have my own structures. Let's say for this week, I have this type of structure, and I have like my self-care structure that is like very defined. It's like my routine, my daily routine is very defined, but my work routine is very undefined. So I try to define it every week as much as I'd like to have it like A to Z. It's never like that. So I think there is a beauty, but when I work with somebody, I get very structured, like especially when I have people with logical circuitry. You and I, we're not very much logical circuitry. You and I, we're very much abstract circuitry, but you have really nice combination, but it's undefined for you. In my space, it's completely absent. Like logic for me, it's like, listen, I can give you all the abstract, let me bring human design and try to explain that to you. But like me trying to logically explain things to people, I can do it when being asked from A to Z. I can do it very well as Virgo. It's like I find great thriving into that, but then it's not our natural drive. So I think I love that you're saying that it's not necessarily your natural trait and you can do it, but you'd rather working this way when you're working with
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like I need to get you, if I'm training, then I need you to get you from A to B.
Yeah.
All right. How we get there?
Yeah.
It depends on the day. It depends on the TV program I just watched, or
I
it's
love this. I love this because that's how my readings are. I have the chart and I usually, okay, I just gonna go like step by step. I'm going to explain people exactly what it is. Never. It's never like this. It's always like exactly. It's like, it depends on questions, depends on how much I actually understand that where person is in their life and what they understand and how much they correlate and our designs, like how our energy is going to correlate with each other. So
Yeah.
there is a lot. There's a lot. All
That's
right, and
cool.
this
So
was
thank you so much.
so fun, and I'll follow up with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely feel free if you have any questions, put them out. We can do any follow up whenever you feel like doing follow up as you digest this a little bit.
Hmm.
And I'm always open for questions because remember, it's not only your questions that help you, but also they help me to learn better, to understand more about other people, and I just love doing that. And then we see each other in Thailand.
Yeah. When are you going?
I actually haven't even bought my tickets. I should buy. Have you already gotten your tickets?
Yeah, because my mom and dad, my family live in Bangkok now.
Oh, that's
So I'm not,
amazing.
all the chats about the hotels.
Yeah,
I'm staying with them. So I'll just
yeah,
get an Uber or something there
yeah,
and back each
yeah.
day. But I'm arriving on the Tuesday
Mhm. On
and
like
then
19 or something, or 18 or something like that.
something like that. And then I'm leaving on the Monday.
Hmm.
So for Singapore, we've got 2 nights in Singapore
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
flying back that way. Because what we loved doing last time was we had Bangkok and then we had 4 days in Phuket
Yeah,
because my dad's not well and my parents aren't well. So it's nice to just go somewhere else and have a couple of days in the vicinity in the Southeast Asia,
yeah, yeah.
to decompress and stuff before coming back. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so
And
yeah.
it's like, again, we don't know how much will be free to travel. God knows how world is. So when you can, you go and make the most out of it.
Do you know, I came back from Bali. You talk about travel, right?
Mhm.
My partner and I are looking at retiring to Bali.
Which area of Bali?
No, I want to go to the north. I love the north, away from everything.
Yeah, yeah, South.
Um,
It's a little
so
intense, isn't it?
south is pretty intense, but yeah, I did the retreat up in the north, and we had a whole venue. We had our own beach, and it was just so special. And I just thought, you know what? Because retirement visa in Bali is Indonesia is age 55, and I'm 55 next month. So
Well, let me tell you, I just wonder what's gonna happen to you within this year and a half, or just until next year. I'm just very curious. I'm gonna make a memo to check in with you exactly next year to be like, are you yet in Bali? Because at least in your astrology, it's very prominent. A big change in terms of location wise with that
mm.
Uranus in your ninth house of Taurus on your sun. I'm like, is she moving somewhere? I was like, what's
How
going
interesting.
That's
Yeah,
what I
we've
told you.
we've
It's like, and I'm like, I'm seeing it's like it's your work, but it's like a lot of travel, a lot of travel. And when I say travel, it's like you are going somewhere, girl. Like I'm like, she's there. I'm like, is she going somewhere? I don't know. But so yeah,
well, our plan is to end of next year. So to give us time, like we got our studio here. So I'm still going to work, but our work is online, right? We can do
so
that from
that's
anywhere.
very, very supportive in your chart. It's very supportive in your chart. So that's a very good time for you to do that for sure. For sure.
Awesome.
The stars are cooperating.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll keep in touch and I'll be in touch. And if not, I will definitely see you in the person
Yes.
in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thailand. That would be really
Also,
lovely.
Ansi, do you know Gene Keys? What Gene Keys are?
I've
I
heard of them.
Anyway, Gene Keys are, I'm going to send you a link. And what you'll do, you just put on your own chart. It's very verbal. There's no any crazy chemistry, but it's based on human design. But it's also gives you just a very nice poetic way to explain what I told you, like a doctor. It
Yeah.
gives you a little bit more poetic way to express your specific gates, the
Okay.
main gates, like the sun gates of your like direction. How we define your incarnation cross of direction. So that's similar way, but in a more poetic way. And you just read your own chart there.
Okay. Wonderful.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.